Hi, Stony Brook Women in Gender and Sexuality Studies majors, graduates of 2020. My name is Raven Dorsey. I graduated from Stony Brook's Women in Gender Studies program with a concentration in gender, sexuality, and public health in 2016. And I know that these are crazy times and you never pictured your graduation looking like this. So I thought I would drop in and give you some words of encouragement just based on my own story as you go into this next part of your life. It's so exciting. So for me, I knew that when I was getting ready to graduate, like in the summer into this winter before graduation, I was like, what am I going to do with this degree? Right? I loved my women in gender studies professors, my curriculum. I mean, where else do you get to talk about Beyonce and sexuality and the male gaze and all these different amazing concepts that no one talks about, but in our program, and I think it's incredible. And I just was trying to figure out what am I going to do next, and I knew that I wanted to bring some positive change, some radical positive change, progressive change to the world. And I kept thinking about, okay, maybe I want to be a doctor and I can, I was super interested in childbirth, took the maternal health class offered in the hospital, and it changed my world. And thought maybe I'll be a doctor. And that kind of flew out of my head because I was like, my gifts don't allow me to be very good at that, right? But there's something also about working within the system that was not appealing to me. And then I thought maybe like a psychologist, but same feeling, right? And so then I ran into social work programs, and I decided to apply to a bunch of social work programs with the help of a couple of women in gender studies professors who helped write recommendations for me. Shout out to Liz Montegary. Hi. And I was able to get into the University of Pennsylvania's Masters of Social Work program. And the reason I chose it was because it had this huge social justice emphasis, more so than just working like clinical skills. It also had this emphasis on creating some real change. And I continued to move on, found myself interested in politics, but at the same time going through the program and being like, okay, so what exactly do I want to do? How can I combine my love for working with people and my love of like actually creating change? Like, what does that even look like in this world today? What does that even look like in my bank account, right? And I eventually, in one of my classes, was like a pitch class, creating a like socially focused project and pitching it to a group of like potential investors. And one of the investors that I pitched to was a new state representative in Philadelphia. And I was able to make a connection with him and start working in his office, and seeing how the legislative offices worked, how they're able to serve people but then also inform policy, really made me like intrigued. I was like, oh, I really like this. Switched over to what we call the macro side of social work, the social policy side of social work, into my second year, and started working at this amazing place called the Women's Law Project as an intern. By November of my program, just like into the year, so not even like halfway, I was offered a full-time position to start in July. Like, that's wild. And still, I was wondering how the pieces were going to come together. I was doing fundraising, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but I kept pushing forward, and I felt like, hey, like this is a great opportunity for me to keep being in the space that I wanted. People in the office that I worked on policy, and I'm like, okay, you know what, maybe I'm not doing the work that I want to do right now, but I'm getting closer. And having that stability at the Women's Law Project allowed me to finally become a doula, something that I've been obsessed with leading up to my maternal health class that I took. And I was ecstatic. I was able to make connection with a bunch of folks. I went to Brooklyn for my training, and being a doula, I realized, wow, like this is the other side of my gifts, right? Things are slowly coming together. And, you know, I began to see myself as wanting to be a policy doula, right? And obviously, like, having to explain that to people and making it come together for them. But I saw myself using my clinical skills, my people skills, to work with pregnant people and their families, to help break the systemic racism that is inside of our hospitals and especially affects Black mothers. And so I felt like I was getting closer and closer, right? And that next 2 years into my time with the Women's Law Project, I randomly sent an application to the Warren for President campaign. I know you're probably like, this story goes on. And I, 2 months later, in November, I got a offer from them to join as a community organizer, which, once again, wasn't something I expected, but I realized that, like, this was the next piece of my puzzle. And it allowed me to, instead of being an organizer that was knocking on doors, I was getting a chance to actually, like, work with community stakeholders to talk about policy. And it was an amazing opportunity that I got. And obviously, for those of you that have been following this crazy political scene that's going on right now, Elizabeth Warren dropped out the week before the coronavirus got wild, right? So here I am, having been on this little bit of a wild ride, and now dropped off in the middle of pandemic land, right? And I just started hitting the ground running with applications. But before I knew, I realized that, hey, there are no jobs that are actually hiring right now. And so it allowed me to go inward and to focus on my doula practice. And I was able to come up with a website, come up with a brand. I call myself the Sparkly Magic Policy Doula, just crazy. And I also told people about my passion, right? I'm like, hey, I have this dream. I want to be a doula, but I want to be a doula that affects policy, you know, and trying to make it make sense for other people, because it was starting to become so real for me. And then I was talking to my former director at Warren for President, and told her how much I wanted to get closer to reproductive health advocacy. And through just people talking to people, I was able to get an interview with the Paid Leave for All campaign, and eventually became a program coordinator, which is what I'm doing now. Which allows me to be involved in a campaign that is trying to get a federal paid leave policy and family leave policy by 2023, while I still get to build my doula practice. And I tell you all of this because I never thought that things would come together like this. Like, I didn't see the pieces when I was in your shoes in 2016, graduating. And so I want to let you know that it's going to be all right, but more importantly, you have the gifts and the skills that you need to get to where you want to go. Dream big and go after it. And I wish you all the best. Y'all are so special. The fact that you've taken the time to study this important topics, it's just so important. So I'm so proud of you, and I wish you the best of luck going forward. Bye.